My sister invited me to her luxury wedding for one reason. Not to celebrate with her. Not because she loved me. Not because she wanted her big sister there when she married the man she claimed was the love of her life. Sarah invited me because she wanted witnesses. 200 of them. The ballroom at the Rosemont Grand looked like something made for a magazine cover. White orchids hung from crystal arches. Gold chairs lined the aisle in perfect rows. A string quartet played softly near the entrance, each note floating beneath chandeliers bright enough to make every diamond in the room glitter. There were cameras everywhere. One near the altar. One beside the floral wall. Two more pointed toward the aisle. A live stream setup stood behind the last row, its little red light blinking like an eye that never closed. That was Sarah. Every moment had to be beautiful. Every angle had to flatter her. Every smile had to look effortless, even when she had spent months planning it. My little sister was not just a bride. She was a brand. Sarah Parker, luxury wedding public relations consultant. Bridal lifestyle influencer. The woman who taught other women how to create the perfect day, the perfect love story, the perfect image. Her own wedding was supposed to be her masterpiece. And I was supposed to be the stain she placed in the corner so everyone could see how far above me she had risen. I sat in the third row from the back, even though I was her only sister. Not with my parents, not with close family, not anywhere near the front. My place card had been tucked at the end of a row beside a distant cousin I had not seen in years, and one of Sarah's assistant planners, who spent most of the ceremony checking her phone. Across the aisle, my mother sat in the front row. Patricia Parker wore pale champagne silk and the proud, polished expression she always saved for Sarah. She did not look back at me once. My father sat beside her, shoulders stiff, hands folded in his lap. Robert Parker looked older than I remembered. He glanced back only once. Our eyes met for half a second. Then he looked away. That was what my father did best. He looked away. I smoothed my hands over my navy dress and reminded myself to breathe. Sarah had asked me to wear gray. Soft gray, she had written in her message. Because it would look better in the family photos. I knew what she meant. Gray would make me disappear. So I wore navy. Quiet, elegant, mine. At the front of the room, Sarah stood beneath the flower arch in a fitted lace gown with a cathedral veil flowing behind her. She looked exactly the way her followers expected her to look. Perfect skin. Perfect smile, perfect tears waiting at the corners of her eyes, ready to fall on command. Beside her stood James Miller. For a moment, I could not look at him. Then I did. He looked older too, sharper around the eyes. His tuxedo fit perfectly, but his expression did not. He stood beside my sister like a man trying to remember how he had arrived somewhere he never meant to be. 4 years had passed since he disappeared from my life. 4 years since I called and got no answer. 4 years since I stood outside his old apartment in the rain, begging a closed door for an explanation. And now, he was at the altar with Sarah. My sister. My little sister. The girl I had spent my whole life protecting. The officiant stepped forward and smiled at the room. Before he could begin the vows, Sarah lifted one delicate hand. Before we continue, she said, her voice warm and bright, James and I prepared a short family tribute. I wanted to honor the people who shaped us, especially the ones who taught us what love and sacrifice really mean. A soft murmur moved through the guests. The lights dimmed. A screen lowered behind the altar. My stomach tightened. I had not known about any tribute. Music began. Gentle piano. The first images were harmless. Sarah as a baby in my mother's arms. Sarah at dance recitals. Sarah in prom dresses. Sarah graduating. Sarah smiling beside clients at bridal events. Then the screen changed. There I was, 16, standing behind Sarah at her birthday party, holding a tray of cupcakes while she blew out candles. Another photo, me in my old coffee shop apron, hair pulled back, face tired, one hand wiping down a table. Another, me in a faded winter coat beside Sarah in a designer dress, cropped just enough to make me look awkward and out of place. A few guests chuckled. My hands went cold. The slideshow kept going. Photo after photo of me in the background. Carrying boxes. Holding Sarah's purse. Standing half outside family pictures. always behind her, always smaller, always useful. Sarah laughed softly into the microphone. My sister Emma has always been part of my journey, she said. She taught me what sacrifice looks like. The room gave a polite little laugh. He sat still. Sarah turned slightly, just enough to face me while still giving the cameras her best angle. But some people sacrifice because they're noble, she said. Others sacrifice because they have nothing better to offer. The laughter grew louder this time. Not from everyone, but enough. Heat climbed up my neck. My mouth went dry. I bit the inside of my lips so hard I tasted blood. Do not cry. Do not give her that. Sarah's smile widened. Then she said the words she had clearly been saving. You're nothing but a failure, Emma. The room went still. For 1 second, even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. Sarah tilted her head, her voice sweet enough to poison tea. No one ever chose you, not even James. A sharp sound moved through the guests. A gasp, a whisper. Someone near the aisle muttered my name like a warning. My mother did not move. My father closed his eyes. I looked down at my hands in my lap. They were trembling. So I pressed them together until my knuckles ached. I had promised myself I would not break in that room. Not in front of Sarah's clients. Not in front of her followers. Not in front of the man who had once known every dream I was too afraid to say out loud. The officiant cleared his throat, nervous now. Perhaps we should continue with the vows, he said. Sarah smiled like nothing had happened. Like she had not just cut me open in front of 200 people and called it a tribute. She turned back to James. Ready? She whispered. James did not answer. At first, I thought I had imagined it. The change in his face was small. A tightening around his mouth. A flicker in his eyes. His gaze moved from Sarah to the screen behind her, where the last image still glowed. It was a photo of me from years ago, standing outside the coffee shop. But James was not looking at me in the picture. He was looking at something else. Something in my hand. The old brown notebook. His face went pale. Sarah reached for his arm. James? She whispered, still smiling for the cameras. The officiant looked between them. We can begin whenever you're ready. James lowered his vows. The paper shook once in his hand. Then it went still. He looked at Sarah. Really looked at her. And for the first time that day, her perfect smile faltered. James, she said again, sharper now. He stepped back. A ripple passed through the front rows. My mother leaned forward. What is he doing? James did not look at her. He did not look at the cameras. He looked at me. My breath caught. There are moments when a room changes before anything actually happens. The air shifts. People stop blinking. Even whispers die, because everyone feels something coming, though no one knows what it is yet. James placed his folded vows on the altar. Sarah grabbed his wrist. He gently pulled free. No, he said. One word, quiet, but the microphone caught it. The whole room heard. Sarah's face drained of color beneath her bridal makeup. James turned away from her. Then he walked down from the altar. Not toward the side door. Not toward my mother. Not toward the aisle that led outside. Toward me. Every head turned. I could hear phones lifting, chairs creaking, someone whispering, "Oh my God." My heart beat so hard it hurt. James stopped in front of my row. For 4 years, I had imagined what I would say if I ever saw him again. I had imagined anger, questions, maybe even silence. But I had never imagined this. James looked down at me with eyes full of something I could not name yet. Regret, shame, recognition. Then, in front of my sister, my parents, Sarah's clients, her cameras, and 200 guests, James Miller lowered himself onto one knee. Sarah screamed. Not cried, not gasped. Screamed. The sound tore through the ballroom and shattered whatever perfect illusion she had built. But James did not move. He stayed on one knee before me. And suddenly, I was no longer sitting in my sister's shadow. Everyone was looking at me. To understand why that single knee destroyed Sarah more than any insult ever could, you need to know how many years I had spent kneeling for her first. I was 4 years old when Sarah came home from the hospital. I do not remember the drive there. I do not remember my father carrying me through the maternity ward. I do not remember the smell of antiseptic or the soft blue blanket wrapped around her tiny body. But I remember my mother's face. Patricia Parker looked at my baby sister like the world had finally corrected itself. "Come meet Sarah," she whispered to me, as if the baby could understand volume, as if my voice might bruise her. I stood beside the hospital bed in my little red sneakers, staring at the small pink face everyone was already leaning toward. My father smiled and told me I was a big sister now. My mother reached down, brushed my hair out of my eyes, and said the sentence that would become the rule of my life. "Emma, you're older now. You have to be gentle." At first, gentle meant simple things. Do not touch Sarah's toys even if they had been mine first. Do not wake Sarah when she is sleeping. Do not cry too loudly because Sarah might get upset. Do not ask for too much because Sarah needs more. By the time I was 6, gentle had become generous. By the time I was 8, generous had become quiet. By the time I was 10, quiet had become invisible. Sarah learned the rules faster than anyone. If she wanted the last cupcake, her lower lip trembled. If she wanted the window seat in the car, her eyes filled with tears. If she wanted the pink backpack I had saved allowance for all summer, she hugged it to her chest and whispered, "But I love it so much." And every time my mother looked at me, "Emma," she would say in that tired voice, as if I had already disappointed her by existing in the way. "You're older. Let your sister have it." So I let Sarah have it. The cupcake, the seat, the backpack, the bigger bedroom when we moved to the house on Maple Ridge, because Sarah had nightmares and needed to feel safe. The new winter coat, because Sarah was going through a growth spurt and mine still fit if I did not zip it all the way. The attention at family dinners because Sarah was more sensitive and needed encouragement. I became very good at smiling before anyone asked me to. People praised me for it. "What a mature girl," my aunt would say. "Such a good big sister," my mother's friends would add. I learned that adults loved a child who made their lives easier. I also learned that being good did not mean being loved more. It meant being asked to disappear more politely. Sarah never had to disappear. She entered every room like the lights belonged to her. She had golden curls when we were little, the kind strangers commented on in grocery store aisles. She had wide blue eyes that could go wet in seconds. She had my mother's beauty and my mother's talent for turning need into command. When Sarah was happy, the whole house relaxed. When Sarah was upset, the whole house moved to fix it. When I was upset, my mother sighed. "Not everything is about you, Emma." That sentence confused me as a child because nothing ever was. My 12th birthday was the first time I understood that clearly. I had asked for a small party, nothing expensive, just pizza, a chocolate cake, and 3 friends from school. I had cleaned the living room myself that morning. I had set paper plates on the dining table and taped blue streamers to the doorway because blue was my favorite color then. 20 minutes before my friends arrived, Sarah came downstairs in tears. She had wanted to wear her white dress with the tiny pearl buttons, but the hem had a stain from a recital the week before. My mother tried to calm her down. Sarah cried harder. Then she saw my birthday dress hanging on the back of a chair. It was pale blue. New. Mine. Sarah stopped crying long enough to touch the sleeve. "I want this one," she said. I looked at my mother before I looked at Sarah. I already knew. "Emma," my mother said softly, "she's having a hard day." "It's my birthday," I whispered. My mother's face tightened. "Don't be selfish. You can wear something else. You're older." So, Sarah wore my dress. In every picture from that party, my little sister is in pale blue, smiling beside my cake. I am standing next to her in an old yellow sweater, hands clasped in front of me, trying not to look like I had been replaced at my own birthday. Years later, when Sarah posted one of those photos online for National Sibling Day, she captioned it, "My big sister always gave me the best of everything." Everyone commented hearts. No one asked if I had been given a choice. The only person who ever seemed to notice was my father. Robert Parker was not cruel. That made his silence harder to understand. He would look at me sometimes after my mother took Sarah's side, and I could see something in his eyes. Regret, maybe, or shame. He knew when things were unfair. He knew I was being asked to carry more than a child should carry. But knowing is not the same as standing up. My father worked long hours and came home tired. He hated conflict. He hated my mother's cold silences even more. So when Patricia said, "Emma understands," he let her say it, even when I did not understand at all. The year I was 13, I won a writing contest at school. It was not a huge contest, just a district thing for middle school students. But my English teacher, Mrs. Alvarez, had pulled me aside after class and told me my essay had made her cry. "You have a voice, Emma," she said. "Do not lose it." I carried that sentence around inside me for weeks. The award ceremony was on a Thursday evening in the school auditorium. I gave my parents the flyer 3 times. I taped a copy to the refrigerator. My father promised he would be there. My mother said, "We'll see," which usually meant no, but I hoped anyway. That same Thursday, Sarah's piano teacher called to say there had been a cancellation in the spring showcase. Sarah could perform after all. My mother lit up as if someone had offered her a crown. "Isn't that wonderful?" she said. I stood beside the refrigerator, looking at my flyer, under the magnet, shaped like a strawberry. "My award ceremony is tonight," I said. My mother did not even turn around. "Emma, this is important for Sarah. She has been practicing so hard." "I practiced too," I said. The kitchen went quiet. Sarah was sitting at the table, swinging her legs. She looked at me with that small, secret smile I already hated. My mother finally faced me. "Do not make your sister feel guilty for having an opportunity." So they went to Sarah's showcase. I went to the award ceremony alone. Mrs. Alvarez sat beside me so I would not be the only student without family in the row. When they called my name, I walked across the stage and accepted a certificate with a gold seal in the corner. People clapped. I smiled the way I had practiced. Afterward, I stood outside the auditorium under the yellow lights, holding my certificate against my chest while other kids posed for photos with their parents. My father arrived late, not late enough to see me win, just late enough to see me standing alone. He got out of the car quickly, still wearing his work shirt, his tie loosened. His face fell when he saw the folded program in my hand. He said, "I'm sorry. I wanted to say it was okay. That was what good daughters did." Instead, I looked at him and asked, "Did Sarah play well?" He closed his eyes for a second. Then he reached into the passenger seat and pulled out a small paper bag from a bookstore. Inside was a plain brown journal with thick pages and a ribbon bookmark. "I saw this last week," he said. "Thought of you." I ran my thumb over the cover. It was not fancy, not expensive, but it was mine. My father touched the top of the journal. "Write everything down, Em," he said quietly. "One day, your truth will need somewhere to live." I did not know then how much I would need those words. I only knew that when I got home that night, Sarah's piano certificate was already on the refrigerator. Mine stayed in my backpack. So, I opened the brown journal, sat on my bedroom floor, and wrote the first sentence I had never been brave enough to say out loud. "I am tired of being the good sister." After that, I wrote everything. Every birthday I gave up. Every apology I made when Sarah had hurt me first. Every time my mother called me selfish for wanting something that belonged to me. Every time my father saw the truth and swallowed it. The journal became the one place where I did not have to be gentle. It became the place where I was allowed to exist. For years, I thought Sarah only wanted my things because she was spoiled. I thought she wanted the dress, the room, the attention, the easy love. I was wrong. Sarah did not just want what I had. She wanted proof that she could take it. And the first thing she stole from me was not James Miller. It was my voice. By the time I was 21, I understood the Parker family system so well that I could hear it before anyone spoke. If Sarah was upset, I would be asked to fix it. If Sarah wanted something, I would be asked to give it. If Sarah failed, I would be asked to soften the landing. And if I ever hesitated, my mother would look at me like my hesitation was the real cruelty. Sarah was 17 then, a senior in high school, beautiful in that effortless way people kept rewarding before she had ever done anything with it. She had my mother's smile, my father's blue eyes, and a talent for making adults believe she was fragile whenever responsibility came too close. I was taking classes during the day and working evenings to pay for books, gas, and whatever little freedom I could afford. I still lived at home because moving out was expensive, and because my mother had spent years making me feel guilty for even wanting a door that Sarah could not walk through. The college essay was supposed to be Sarah's responsibility. It was for a scholarship attached to one of the private universities she wanted to attend. The prompt was simple enough. Write about a challenge that shaped you and how it changed the way you saw the world. Sarah left it until the last week. On Sunday night, She came into my room holding her laptop against her chest. Her eyes were red, but not from crying for long. I knew the difference by then. Real tears made Sarah angry and blotchy. Performance tears made her soft and helpless. "Emma," she said, standing in my doorway. "Can you just look at something?" I was at my desk, highlighting an article for a sociology class, my work uniform hanging over the back of my chair because I had a shift in an hour. "Sarah, I can't tonight." Her lower lip trembled. "I just need help. You're good at this stuff." This stuff. Words. Feelings. The only things that had ever felt like mine. I sighed and held out my hand. "Show me what you have." She gave me the laptop. There were 3 sentences on the page. They were not bad. They were worse than bad. They were empty. I scrolled, waiting for the rest. "That's it?" I asked. Sarah crossed her arms. "Don't say it like that. The deadline is Friday." "I know that." "Then why didn't you start earlier?" Her face changed fast. The softness vanished, and underneath it was the Sarah I knew better than anyone. Sharp. Irritated. Certain that being questioned was the same as being attacked. Before she could answer, my mother appeared in the hallway. "What is going on?" "Emma is making me feel stupid," Sarah said immediately. I stared at her. "I am not." She asked why I didn't start earlier. My mother looked at me, not her. "Was that necessary?" "Mom, she has 3 sentences." "Then help her." "I have work. Your sister's future is more important than one coffee shop shift." That was how my mother did it. She never called my dreams worthless directly. She just placed Sarah's needs beside mine and acted like the answer was obvious. I looked down at the blank essay. What challenge is she even writing about? Sarah shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe being underestimated." I laughed once before I could stop myself. The room went cold. My mother stepped inside. "Do not mock your sister." I bit my tongue. Sarah sat on my bed while I asked her questions. What did she want? Why that school? What had shaped her? What had she overcome? Every answer was thin. She wanted a pretty campus. She wanted to get away. She wanted people to take her seriously. The last one stayed with me, maybe because I knew what it felt like to want that. So I opened a new document and started shaping her scattered complaints into something that sounded like growth. I wrote about being seen as delicate and learning to be strong. I wrote about living in the shadow of expectations. I wrote about finding a voice beneath the labels other people placed on you. The irony was so sharp, I almost laughed again. Sarah watched me type for 10 minutes before getting bored. "I trust you," she said, flopping back on my pillows. "Make it sound like me, but smarter." Then she left. I worked on it until 2 in the morning. Not because I wanted Sarah to win. Because once I started writing, I could not make myself write badly. Even for her. Even after everything. By Friday, the essay was polished enough to make my chest hurt. There were sentences in it I wished I had saved for myself. Lines about silence. About being underestimated. About learning that a voice did not need permission to exist. Sarah submitted it under her name without reading the final draft all the way through. 3 months later, she won. My mother screamed when the email came in. Sarah jumped up and down in the kitchen. My father smiled with relief as if Sarah's success proved the whole family had done something right. I stood by the sink, holding a wet plate. "Read it out loud," my mother said. Sarah opened the essay on her phone and began to read my words in her bright, confident voice. Everyone listened. My mother cried. My father said, "That's beautiful, Sarah." Sarah looked over the top of her phone at me. Just for a second. Just long enough. She knew. She knew exactly what she was reading. She knew those words had not come from whatever shallow well she had pretended was depth. She knew I had given her more than grammar corrections. I had given her the part of myself I had protected in that brown journal. After dinner, I followed my mother into the laundry room. "I wrote most of that essay," I said. My voice shook, but I said it. For once, I said it. My mother did not look surprised. That hurt more than if she had. She folded one of Sarah's sweaters carefully, sleeve over sleeve. "You helped your sister," she said. "No. I wrote it." "Lower your voice." "She won a scholarship with my work." My mother finally looked at me. Her expression was not guilt. It was warning. Do not ruin this for her. I stared at her. For her, Sarah needed this. You are already smart, Emma. You have always been capable. Let your sister have one win. One win. As if Sarah had not been handed victory after victory wrapped in my silence. As if I had not spent my whole life stepping backwards so she could stand in better light. I wanted to shout. I wanted to take the phone from Sarah's hand and send the draft history to the scholarship committee. I wanted to print every version with my name, buried in the document properties, and tape them to the refrigerator beside all the proof my family chose to see. But my mother knew exactly where to press. If you expose her, she said quietly, you will look jealous. Bitter. Cruel. Is that who you want to be? That was the trap Sarah could take. I could only react. And somehow, my reaction would always be the uglier thing. So I said nothing. That night, I opened my brown journal and wrote until my hand cramped. Sarah did not steal that essay because she needed it. She stole it because it proved she could wear my voice better than I was allowed to use it. A week later, her scholarship certificate went on the refrigerator. Mine from the writing contest was still in a box under my bed. For a long time after Sarah won that scholarship, I stopped showing people the things I cared about. Not because I stopped caring, because I had learned what happened when my family saw something bright in my hands. They called it selfish, until I gave it away. So I kept my writing private. I kept my dreams quiet. I worked, studied, paid my own bills, and told myself that leaving the Parker house someday would be enough. By the time I was 24, I had moved into a small apartment across town and taken late shifts at a coffee shop near the University District. The place was called Maple Street Coffee, though there was not a maple tree anywhere near it. The sign out front buzzed when it rained. The espresso machine screamed like it had a personal grudge against mornings. The back door stuck unless you kicked the bottom corner twice. I loved it anyway. It was not glamorous. My hair smelled like roasted beans after every shift. My hands were always dry from sanitizer and dish soap. Some nights I came home with aching feet and tips barely enough to cover groceries. But there was something honest about that place. If I wiped down a table, it stayed clean. If I made a drink correctly, someone thanked me. If I worked hard, no one handed my effort to Sarah and called it family. At least, not at first. James Miller started on a rainy Tuesday in October. He came in through the back door, carrying a cardboard box of aprons, slipped on the wet floor, caught himself on the prep counter, and apologized to the mop bucket. I laughed before I could stop myself. He looked up, embarrassed, dark hair damp from the rain, one sleeve of his jacket soaked through. Please tell me the bucket is not my supervisor, he said. Depends how well you listen to it. I said. That was the first thing I ever said to James. He smiled like I had handed him something valuable. Most people smiled with their mouths first. James smiled with his eyes, slowly, like light entering a room one curtain at a time. He was 25, 1 year older than me. He had worked construction, delivery, warehouse nights, anything that paid enough to keep him moving. He was taking community business classes when he could afford them, though he never said that with pride. He said it like he was admitting to wanting too much. On his first shift, he burned milk twice, dropped a sleeve of cups, and accidentally wrote Megan on a cup for a man named Matthew. But he apologized with such sincere horror that even Matthew laughed. You'll get faster, I told him during closing. He was sweeping near the pastry case. Is that a polite way of saying I was terrible? No, you were definitely terrible, but you were useful. High praise. From me? Very high. He leaned on the broom and studied me for a second. Not in the way men sometimes looked at women when they thought no one would notice. James looked as if he was listening, even when I was not talking. Do you always work this hard? He asked. I shrugged. Somebody has to. That sounds exhausting. It sounds normal. He did not answer right away. Then he said, maybe normal and exhausting can be the same thing. I hated how much that sentence stayed with me. Over the next few weeks, James learned the rhythm of the shop. He memorized regulars' orders. He figured out how to kick the back door in the exact spot so it opened. He stopped apologizing to objects, mostly. We closed together 3 nights a week. Those nights became mine in a way I had not expected. After the last customer left and the chairs were flipped onto tables, the world narrowed to warm lights, coffee grounds, the hiss of the sink, and James humming badly while he swept. He asked questions without making me feel cornered. What did I read? Why did I like writing? What would I do if nobody needed anything from me for 1 whole year? I told him no one had ever asked me that. He stopped wiping the counter. Then answer it carefully, he said. First answers to new questions matter. So I did. I told him I would travel by train across the country. I would visit used bookstores in small towns. I would write in diners and buy postcards I would never send. I would sleep without feeling guilty. James listened like every word deserved a place to land. Then he said, "You don't always have to be the strong one, Emma." The words were simple. That was why they hurt. My whole life, being strong had never been a compliment. It had been a job assignment. Be strong so Sarah could fall apart. Be strong so Mom did not have to explain herself. Be strong so Dad could stay quiet. Be strong so everyone else could keep taking. I turned away and pretended to rinse a cup that was already clean. James did not push. A week later, he brought in a brown notebook. It was not the same as the journal my father had given me years earlier, but it reminded me of it. Plain cover. Thick pages. A small elastic band around the outside. He set it between us on the break table after close. "What is that?" I asked. "Our Impossible Things book." I stared at him. He opened to the first page. At the top, in neat block letters, he had written, "Things we are allowed to want." My throat tightened before I could make fun of him. James slid the pen toward me. No practical answers. I am a practical person. I know. That is why you need rules. So I wrote the first thing that came to mind. A bookstore cafe with blue chairs. James smiled and added under it, "A wall where people can leave notes for strangers who need hope." I wrote, "A scholarship for kids no one believes in." His face softened when he read that one. Then he wrote, "A road trip with no destination and no one calling to ask when we are coming back." After that, the notebook became part of us. We wrote in it, during slow shifts and after closing, tiny dreams, ridiculous dreams, brave ones, a tiny apartment full of plants, a dog with a serious name, Sunday mornings with no alarms, a life where love did not feel like debt. For the first time, I let someone see what I wanted before it was safe. That was my mistake. Not loving James. Letting Sarah see that someone loved me back. She came into the coffee shop near the end of November, wearing a cream coat I recognized because my mother had called me the week before to ask if I could help pay for it as Sarah's early birthday gift. Sarah smiled when she saw me behind the counter. "There you are," she said, like she had found something misplaced. James was restocking lids beside me. His shoulder brushed mine when he turned. Sarah noticed. Of course she noticed. Her eyes moved from James to me, then to the notebook, sitting half hidden near the register. The smile she gave me then was small, curious, hungry. "Emma," she said sweetly, "aren't you going to introduce me?" I should have lied. I should have told Sarah that James was just another coworker, another person passing through a late shift, another name she did not need to remember. Instead, I said, "Sarah, this is James. James, this is my sister." James wiped his hand on his apron before offering it. "Nice to meet you," he said. Sarah looked at his hand for one heartbeat too long before taking it. Not long enough to be rude. Just long enough to remind him there was a difference between people like her and people like him. "Emma never mentioned you," she said. James glanced at me, amused. "That sounds like Emma." My face warmed. Sarah saw it. Of course she saw it. After that, she started coming by the coffee shop more often. Never in a way that looked obvious. Sarah was too smart for obvious. Sometimes she came for a latte. Sometimes she said Mom wanted pastries. Sometimes she sat near the window and watched James through the reflection in the glass while pretending to scroll through her phone. She asked him harmless questions. Where was he from? Was the coffee shop temporary? Did he have bigger plans? James answered politely because James was polite to everyone. I told myself Sarah was only bored. I told myself she would lose interest. Then, 2 weeks before Christmas, $80 went missing from the register. It happened after closing. Mark, our manager, counted the drawer twice, then came out of the office with his mouth pressed into a hard line. "We're short," he said. I was wiping down the espresso machine. James was carrying a trash bag toward the back door. Sarah was at a window table with a half-finished drink, waiting for the pastries my mother had asked me to bring home. "How short?" I asked. Mark did not look at me. He looked at James. $80. James stopped. "Did someone count the safe?" "I counted everything," Mark said. The way he said it made the room go still. James lowered the trash bag. "You think I took it?" "I didn't say that." "You looked at me." Mark crossed his arms. "You asked for an advance last week." James went quiet. I knew about the advance. His truck had needed repairs. Rent was due. He had been embarrassed when he told me, like needing help was some kind of crime. "I paid that back," James said. "I'm just saying," Mark replied. "Money pressure changes people." Sarah's voice came softly from the window. "I'm not accusing him," she said. Everyone turned. Her eyes were wide, innocent, almost concerned. "I just know desperate people do desperate things." The sentence landed exactly where Mark wanted it to land. On James. For 1 second, I saw shame cross James's face before anger replaced it. "Emma," he said quietly, "you know I didn't." "I know," I said. Mark gave a short laugh. "You can't know that." "Yes, I can. Stay out of this." "No." The word came out sharper than I expected. I walked to the register and pulled the closing slips from beside the drawer. My hands were shaking, but I kept moving. "Check the refunds," I said. Mark's expression changed. "What?" "You voided 2 orders during lunch. One for $12 and one for $18. I remember because the receipt printer jammed. That has nothing to do with this. Then checking it should not be a problem." Sarah stood. "Emma, maybe you should not make this worse." I did not look at her. I checked the register tape. Then the refund log. Then the handwritten adjustment sheet Mark kept clipped inside the office door. The numbers did not match. Mark said I was confused. Then he said I was tired. Then he said employees had no right touching manager paperwork. But the louder he got, the clearer the truth became. He had taken the money himself and hidden it under fake voids. He had expected no one to look closely. He had expected James to be poor enough to blame and quiet enough to break. The owner arrived after I called him. He checked the camera near the office. By midnight, James was cleared. By morning, Mark was fired. After everyone left, James and I stayed to finish closing. The shop felt hollow. James reached for our brown notebook near the register, but his hand slipped. It fell to the floor, pages spreading open between us. He lowered himself onto one knee to pick it up. I crouched too. For a moment, we were both on the floor, our hands touching the same page. James looked at me with an expression I had never seen from anyone in my family. Not need. Not expectation. Gratitude. "You stood beside me," he said. "Of course I did." "No." His voice was low. "Most people say that after it is safe. You did it when everyone was watching." I did not know what to say. He held the notebook between us like it mattered. Then he said, "If I ever forget who stood beside me, I hope life forces me to kneel and remember." I laughed softly because I thought he was being dramatic. I did not know Sarah had come back for her purse. I did not know she was standing outside the glass door. But when I looked up, I saw her through the window, one hand on the handle, watching us from the dark. She was not smiling. She had just found the one thing I did not know how to give away. After that night, something changed in Sarah. Not in a way anyone else would have noticed. She still smiled when she came into the coffee shop. She still ordered vanilla lattes and called me Em in that soft little voice she used when she wanted strangers to think we were close. But her attention shifted. She was not watching me anymore. She was watching James. At first, she did it gently. She asked how his truck was running. She remembered he was taking business classes. She praised him for working so hard, then tilted her head and said things like, "Emma always does that too. She tries to save everyone." James laughed the first time. The second time, he looked uncomfortable. By January, my mother knew about him. I had not told her much. I had learned not to hand my family names that mattered. But Sarah must have said enough, because one Sunday dinner, Patricia looked across the table and asked, "So this James from the coffee shop, is he serious?" I kept my fork still. He's a good person. That was not what I asked. My father looked down at his plate. Sarah smiled into her water glass. He's trying really hard, she said. It's kind of sweet. The way she said sweet made it sound small. My mother dabbed the corner of her mouth with a napkin. Emma, you have spent your whole life taking care of people. I hope you are not finding another project. He is not a project. Does he have a real career? He works. He studies. So no. I pushed back my chair. I'm not doing this. But the damage had already started. James heard it later, not from me. From Sarah. She found him outside the coffee shop one evening while I was in the back counting supplies. I did not know about that conversation until much later. And even then, only in broken pieces. She told him my family worried about me. She said I had always sacrificed too much. She said I was tired, even if I would never admit it. She said I deserved someone who did not need saving. Then my mother asked to speak with him. James told me he was meeting a friend after class. I believed him because I loved him, and because loving someone makes you want the simple explanation to be true. Patricia met him in the parking lot behind a restaurant near our old neighborhood. She did not shout. She did not threaten him. My mother was too polished for that. She told him I had carried Sarah my whole life. She told him I would carry him too. She told him if he loved me, he would not become one more burden I was too kind to put down. Then she offered him money to leave. He did not take it. That was the part he would later hold on to, as if refusing the cash made the leaving less cruel. But he left anyway, not all at once. First, his texts got shorter. Then he missed one closing shift and said he had a family emergency. Then he stopped writing in the brown notebook. I asked him what was wrong, and he looked at me like he wanted to tell the truth, but had already been convinced the truth would hurt me more. One night, he held my hand outside the coffee shop and said, "You deserve a life where you don't have to rescue anybody." I frowned. "Who told you that?" He looked away. The next morning, he was gone. His apartment was empty. His phone went straight to voicemail. At the coffee shop, the owner said James had quit by email. For 3 days, I barely slept. On the 4th, I found out he had left me a letter. Or he tried to. Years later, I would learn that James had slipped it under the front door of my old family house because he thought I would be there for Sunday dinner. My mother found it first. Sarah read it second. I never saw it. Back then, all I knew was that the man who once promised life should force him to kneel and remember had vanished without giving me even one honest goodbye. And Sarah watched me grieve with the careful patience of someone waiting for a wound to become useful. 4 years passed. I wish I could say I spent those years becoming untouchable. I did not. I worked. I paid rent. I built a life small enough that no one in my family could take much from it. I stopped going to Sunday dinners. I answered my mother's calls only when I had the strength. I kept my apartment quiet, my circle smaller, and the brown notebook hidden in the back of my closet where even I rarely saw it. James became a wound I learned to walk with. Not healed. Managed. Sarah, meanwhile, became exactly what my mother always believed she would become. A success. Not the kind of success that required depth. The kind that required lighting, timing, and a face people trusted on camera. She started as an assistant at a luxury wedding public relations firm, then built a following by posting soft-filtered videos about bridal etiquette, perfect proposal stories, family unity, and how to design a wedding that felt like destiny. Her captions were always tender. Her dresses were always pale. Her voice online was warm enough to make strangers confess their heartbreak in the comments. People called her inspiring. Brands called her marketable. My mother called her gifted. Sarah called herself a storyteller. I almost laughed when I first read that. Then, one Thursday in early spring, a cream envelope appeared in my mailbox. Heavy paper. Gold lettering. My name written in curling script. For a moment, I thought it was a mistake. Then I opened it. Sarah Parker and James Miller request the honor of your presence. The words blurred. I sat on the floor beside my front door with the invitation in my lap, unable to move. James. Sarah. My little sister, and the man who had vanished from my life without one honest goodbye. My phone rang before I could breathe properly. Mom. I stared at the screen until it almost stopped ringing. Then I answered. You received it? She asked. Not hello. Not are you okay? Just that. Yes. Good. Sarah wants you there. I closed my eyes. Why? Because she is your sister. That has never been enough before. My mother's silence turned sharp. Do not start, Emma. This wedding is important. There will be clients there. Sponsors. People from Sarah's industry. She is being very generous by including you. Including me. Like I was an afterthought she had decided to tolerate. 2 days later, Sarah came to my apartment carrying a garment bag and a smile I did not trust. I picked your color, she said brightly. Inside was a pale gray dress. Soft. Expensive. Colorless. It will look beautiful in photos, she said. I just don't want you to feel out of place. I looked at the dress, then at my sister, and I finally understood. Sarah did not invite me because she wanted peace. She invited me because every perfect bride needed a shadow. On the morning of Sarah's wedding, I left the gray dress hanging in the back of my closet. I did not throw it away. I did not tear it. I did not even take it out of the garment bag. I simply looked at it once, then reached for the navy dress I had bought with my own money. It was simple. Knee length. Clean lines. Nothing dramatic. Nothing bridal. Nothing that could be mistaken for a challenge unless someone had already decided my existence was one. When I arrived at the Rosemont Grand, I understood immediately that Sarah had not planned a wedding. She had planned a production. There were floral walls with her initials and James's in gold. There were camera operators moving quietly between rows of chairs. There was a table near the entrance, stacked with gift bags from bridal brands. I recognized a few names from Sarah's posts. A luxury florist, a makeup company, a boutique venue magazine. Her clients were there. Her sponsors were there. Her entire perfect image had an audience. A young woman with a headset checked my name on a tablet. Her smile flickered when she saw my dress. You're Emma Parker? Yes. She glanced toward the front of the room. You're seated this way. Not with family. Of course not. She led me to the third row from the back. From there, I could see my mother in the front, glowing with pride, and my father sitting beside her like a man already tired of himself. Sarah saw me before the ceremony began. Her eyes dropped to my navy dress. For 1 second, her expression hardened. Then, a photographer turned toward her, and my sister became sunlight again. Emma, she called softly, just loud enough for nearby guests to hear. You came. I stood. You invited me. Her smile sharpened. I wasn't sure you would be brave enough. I felt the old pull to lower my eyes. To make it easier. To let Sarah have the room, because she always had. Instead, I sat back down. The ceremony began with music soft enough to sound expensive. Sarah walked down the aisle on my father's arm, beautiful in white lace and a veil that floated behind her like a cloud designed by committee. People sighed. Phones lifted. Cameras followed her every step. James stood beneath the arch. I tried not to look at him. I failed. He looked composed from a distance, but not happy. There was a tension in his jaw I remembered from the night Mark accused him at the coffee shop. The look of a man trying to stand still while something inside him pulled away. Sarah reached him and handed her bouquet to a bridesmaid. The officiant smiled at the room. Before he could begin, Sarah touched his arm. Actually, she said, turning toward the guests, James and I wanted to share something first. A short family tribute. Because today is not only about love, it is about the people who shaped us. The screen behind the altar lit up. My stomach turned cold. The first photos were perfect Sarah, baby Sarah, dancing Sarah, graduating Sarah, Sarah with clients, Sarah laughing beside James. Then my face appeared. Me in my coffee shop apron, wiping a table. Me carrying boxes at one of Sarah's events. Me standing at the edge of family photos, half cropped out. A low laugh moved through the room. Sarah took the microphone with practiced grace. My sister Emma has always been part of my journey, she said. She taught me what sacrifice looks like. Another photo appeared. Me at 17, standing beside Sarah while she held the scholarship certificate for the essay I had written. My hands curled around the edge of my chair. But some people sacrifice because they're noble, Sarah said. Others sacrifice because they have nothing better to offer. The room shifted. Some people laughed. Others went silent. Then the screen changed again. A photo from Maple Street Coffee. Me near the register. And in my hand, half visible, was the brown notebook James and I had once filled with impossible things. James's face changed. Sarah turned toward me, her smile bright and merciless. "You're nothing but a failure, Emma," she said. "No one ever chose you. Not even James." I bit the inside of my lip until I tasted blood. I did not stand. I did not answer. The officiant cleared his throat, visibly uncomfortable. "Perhaps we should continue with the vows." Sarah turned back to James, still smiling. But James was not looking at her anymore. He was staring at the screen. James kept staring at the screen. For a moment, no one moved. The image of me at Maple Street Coffee stayed frozen behind the altar. My younger face half turned from the camera, the brown notebook tucked against my chest. Most of the guests probably saw only another embarrassing picture Sarah had chosen to make me look small. James saw something else. He saw us. He saw the one thing Sarah should never have known enough to use. Sarah's smile stiffened. "James," she said softly, still trying to make her voice sound bridal and sweet. "The vows." The officiant shifted his weight. "Whenever you are ready." James did not look at him. He looked at Sarah. "How did you get that photo?" The question was quiet, but the microphone picked it up. A ripple moved through the room. Sarah gave a little laugh. "What?" "The photo," James said. "The one with the notebook. How did you get it?" Sarah's eyes flicked toward the cameras, then toward my mother. I saw Patricia's hand tighten around her clutch in the front row. "James, not now," Sarah whispered. "When?" The word cut through the ballroom. Sarah's face changed for half a second. The perfect bride vanished, and my little sister stood there instead. Angry. Cornered. Furious that anyone had stopped following the script. "It was just a picture," she said. "No," James said. "It was not." I could barely breathe. The guests were silent now. Not polite silent. Hungry silent. The kind of silence people fall into when they realize a beautiful event has cracked open and something ugly is underneath. Sarah reached for his hand. James stepped back. The movement was small, but it felt like a door closing. "Don't do this," Sarah said through her smile. He looked at her hand, then at her face. "What else did you take from her?" My throat tightened. Sarah's mouth parted. "Excuse me?" "The notebook," James said. "The letter?" "The truth." My mother stood. "James, this is inappropriate." The microphone caught that too. Every head turned toward her. James finally looked at my mother. "You knew." Patricia's face went pale beneath her makeup. Sarah laughed again, too sharp this time. "This is ridiculous. He's nervous. Weddings make people emotional." "Did Emma ever get my letter?" James asked. The room went so still I could hear the hum of the speakers. My heart slammed once against my ribs. "Letter?" I gripped the edge of my chair. "What letter?" I whispered. James heard me. His face twisted. Sarah did too. That was when I knew. Not because anyone confessed yet. Not because anyone explained. But because guilt has a shape when it enters a room. It bends the body before the mouth admits anything. Sarah turned on him in a harsh whisper. "You promised you would not bring up the past." "I promised a lot of things when I believed you." "James." "No." His voice rose. "I left because you and your mother told me I was destroying Emma's life." Patricia took one step into the aisle. "That is enough." James did not stop. "You told me she was tired of carrying people. You told me I was another burden. You offered me money to disappear." A gasp moved through the guests. I looked at my mother. She would not look back. James's hands trembled at his sides, but his voice stayed clear. "I did not take the money, but I believed the rest. I believed I was saving Emma by leaving her." My chest hurt so badly I had to remind myself to breathe. For 4 years, I had thought James left because I was not enough to make him stay. But he had left because my family had turned my love into another duty. Sarah's face hardened. "You made your choice. After you lied. I protected my sister. You stole from her." The words landed harder than any shout. Sarah's eyes flashed. She always acted like a martyr. Someone had to make her move on. James stared at her. So you hid the letter. Sarah's lips pressed together. Patricia said, "Sarah, don't answer." But the warning came too late. Sarah snapped. That letter would have ruined everything. A sound left me before I could stop it. Not a sob. Not a word. Just air breaking. James closed his eyes. The bridesmaids stared at Sarah, as if they had never seen her before. One of the cameras near the aisle adjusted with a soft mechanical sound, still recording. Sarah realized it then. The microphone, the cameras, the guests, her clients, her sponsors. All of them watching the mask slip. She turned back to James, desperate now. "I loved you. I did what I had to do. You told me you were pregnant," James said. The room erupted in whispers. Sarah froze. My mother whispered, "Stop." James looked sick. "You said there had been a pregnancy scare. You said you lost it before you could even see a doctor. You said I owed you a future because I had already taken one from you." Sarah's eyes filled with tears instantly. But this time, they did not look soft. They looked practiced. "That was private," she whispered. "Was it true?" Sarah said nothing. James turned toward the guests, toward the cameras, toward the life Sarah had staged so carefully. "I cannot marry her," he said. The officiant lowered his book. Sarah grabbed James's sleeve. "No." James gently removed her hand. "This wedding is built on lies." A collective gasp filled the ballroom. Sarah shook her head, veil trembling. "James, please, we can talk in private." "You made Emma's humiliation public," he said. "So, the truth can be public too." Then he looked at me, not like a man asking to be forgiven, like a man finally understanding the cost of his cowardice. "I was weak enough to believe them," he said, his voice breaking. "That part is mine," Sarah whispered. "I will ruin you." James looked back at her. "You already tried." Then he reached up, pulled the white boutonniere from his tuxedo, and set it on the altar beside his folded vows. My sister made a sound like she had been struck. James stepped away from her, away from the flowers, away from the cameras Sarah had invited to worship her. Then he walked down the aisle, straight toward me. James walked toward me as if every step cost him something. No one spoke. Not Sarah, not my mother, not even the guests who had spent the last few minutes whispering like they were watching a scandal unfold from a safe distance. The whole room had gone still, trapped between the wedding Sarah had promised them and the truth James had just dragged into the light. I could hear his shoes against the aisle runner. One step, then another. My hands were still gripping the edge of my chair. My lips stung where I had bitten it. My heart was beating so hard that for a moment, I thought I might stand just to keep from breaking apart in front of everyone. James stopped in front of me. Up close, he did not look like the groom from Sarah's perfect photos. He looked like the man from Maple Street Coffee. Tired. Ashamed. Human. The man who had once dropped a sleeve of cups on his first day and apologized to the mop bucket. The man who had written impossible things with me in a brown notebook. The man who had disappeared because my family had convinced him love was just another weight I had to carry. For 4 years, I had imagined him looking at me with indifference. I had not prepared for remorse. "Emma," he said. My name sounded broken in his mouth. Behind him, Sarah moved. "James," she snapped. He did not turn around. My mother stepped into the aisle. "Emma, do not encourage this." That almost made me laugh. Even then, with Sarah's lies bleeding across the ballroom, my mother still found a way to make me responsible for someone else's choice. James lowered himself onto one knee. The room gasped as one body. Sarah screamed. It was not a graceful sound, not the delicate cry of a heartbroken bride. It ripped out of her, sharp and ugly, echoing beneath the chandeliers. "No!" she shouted. "Get up! Do not you dare kneel for her!" But James stayed there, on one knee, in front of me, in front of Sarah's cameras, Sarah's clients, Sarah's sponsors, Sarah's carefully arranged world, and suddenly I understood why that image destroyed her. It was not because James was choosing me as a bride. He was not offering me a ring. He was not asking me to take him back. He was doing something worse to Sarah. He was honoring me, publicly, the one thing my sister had spent her life making sure no one did. James looked up at me, eyes wet. "You once saved me when no one else believed me," he said. And I repaid you by believing the people who used you. My throat closed. I remembered the coffee shop floor, the brown notebook between us, his hand touching mine over the page, his voice, younger and softer, saying, "If I ever forget who stood beside me, I hope life forces me to kneel and remember." Now life had done exactly that. James swallowed. "I am not kneeling because I deserve forgiveness," he said. "I am kneeling because this is where my pride should have been years ago." A sound moved through the room. Not laughter now, not judgment, something heavier. Recognition. The kind that comes when people finally understand they have been watching the wrong person. Sarah stumbled down from the altar, grabbing at her dress so she would not trip over the lace. Her veil had pulled loose on one side. Her perfect hair was falling around her face. "This is my wedding," she shouted. "Mine." "She ruins everything. She always ruins everything." No one moved to comfort her. One of her bridesmaids took a step back. Then another. A man near the front, one I recognized from Sarah's bridal brand posts, lowered his phone slowly. A woman with a media badge whispered to someone beside her and shook her head. The wedding planner stood frozen near the floral wall, her headset pressed to one ear, her face pale with professional panic. The livestream camera was still on. Sarah saw it at the same time I did. For the first time all day, real fear crossed her face. Not fear of losing James, fear of being seen. My mother rushed toward her. "Turn the cameras off." No one seemed to know who she was talking to. My father stood from the front row, but he did not go to Sarah. He looked at me instead, and the grief on his face was too late to mean anything useful. James was still kneeling. I looked down at him and felt the room waiting for me to make the story beautiful. The betrayed woman forgives. The lost lovers reunite. The cruel sister falls. The groom chooses the right woman. But my life was not a romance Sarah could steal and rewrite. I had spent too many years carrying other people's guilt and calling it love. So I stood. James rose slowly, as if he already knew. "Thank you for telling the truth," I said. His face crumpled slightly. "But I spent my whole life being responsible for other people's shame," I continued. "I will not carry yours too." He closed his eyes. When he opened them, he nodded. No argument, no plea. Just the first honest acceptance he had given me in years. Then I turned to Sarah. She was crying now, but the tears did not move me. I had seen Sarah cry over cupcakes, dresses, attention, consequences. Her tears had built the cage I grew up inside. "You wanted me here so everyone could see I was nothing," I said. Her mouth twisted. "You are nothing." This time, no one laughed. I stepped closer. "I gave you my birthdays," I said. "My work. My silence. My chances. I even let you wear my voice and call it yours." Sarah's eyes flashed toward the screen, where the frozen image of the notebook still glowed behind the altar. "But I will not give you my future." The words left me cleanly. No shaking. No apology. No waiting for permission. Sarah looked around, searching for someone to save her. My mother reached for her hand, but even Patricia could not polish what had just happened. Too many people had heard it. Too many cameras had caught it. Too many sponsors had watched the perfect bridal storyteller turn her own wedding into a stage for cruelty. Guests began to stand. Not all at once. One row, then another. A bridesmaid removed the small bouquet from her hands and set it on a chair. The brand manager near the aisle walked out while already speaking into her phone. The magazine photographer packed his camera without looking at Sarah. The wedding planner whispered, "We need to shut down the feed," but her voice sounded like she knew it was already too late. By nightfall, clips were everywhere. Not with Sarah's chosen caption. Not with the soft music and gold filter she had planned. The headlines were simple and brutal. Bridal influencer humiliates sister at altar. Groom exposes wedding built on lies. Luxury wedding consultant caught using ceremony to shame family member. By morning, Sarah's comments were flooded. By afternoon, 2 brands had ended their partnerships. By the next week, the wedding firm suspended her pending review. Clients canceled consultations. Brides who had once saved her posts now used her name as a warning. Sarah had built her career on the illusion of perfect love. Then she destroyed it in front of 200 witnesses. I did not stay to watch her collapse. I walked out before the room fully emptied, past the floral wall, past the gift bags, past the gold chairs and the cameras, and the version of myself my sister had invited there to bury. Outside, the evening air was cool. For a moment, I stood alone beneath the hotel lights. No James beside me. No mother calling after me. No Sarah's shadow stretching over my feet. For the first time in my life, I did not walk behind my sister. I did not stand beside the man who hurt me. I walked out alone. And somehow, that felt like being chosen at last. For years, I believed love meant making myself smaller so other people could feel whole. I thought being a good daughter meant staying quiet. I thought being a good sister meant giving Sarah whatever she wanted, even when what she wanted was my voice, my work, my dignity, and eventually the man I loved. I thought strength meant carrying pain without letting anyone see the weight. But walking out of that hotel alone taught me the truth. Strength is not silence. Love is not sacrifice when only one person is bleeding. Family is not a word people get to use while they erase you. Sarah lost her perfect image because it had never been built on truth. My mother lost control because I finally stopped obeying guilt. James told the truth, and I was grateful for that, but his regret did not become my responsibility. That was the lesson I carried out with me. You can forgive someone without returning to them. You can understand someone's pain without carrying it. And you can love your family without letting them turn your life into proof of their power. For the first time, I chose myself.